So, last week there were some oversights in the show. Like, I said the dam stage at Dubai was going to be boring and that John Degenkolb didn't care. Clearly those statements were less than accurate. Also, my description of 100 kph winds at Étoile de Bessèges as a little windy, probably a gross mischaracterization. And then beIN Sports was actually carrying the women's tour of Qatar, just no one was uploading it to cycling torrents. And I mean, these haven't been isolated incidents, so for this week's episode, we're doing an apology show.
Unlike other outlets, when I screw it up, I know it's the Cyclocosm Apology Show.
I'm sorry I didn't talk last week about Jack Bobridge being the first rider to fail to set the new hour record. I appreciate the guts it takes to go all in from the gun shooting for 54K, so I'm also sorry I'm going to make this joke that the Jackie Durand approach probably isn't going to work on the track. I'm sorry I didn't do more to set up Rohan Dennis of BMC's successful hour attempt. He may end up being the first rider to retake the new record once someone bests his mark, and it's the back-and-forth battles between athletes that make these things compelling. I'm sorry I didn't go on a big rant about how 10 million euro pro teams are excused from bringing a TT bike to Tour of Qatar, when most local promoters have no compunctions about letting €0 amateurs compete on ungodly expensive full-aero rigs. That said, I'm also sorry that the Dubai Tour couldn't find $500 in its throbbing call a doctor if it lasts for more than 4 hours budget to freight over a proper jersey press from Europe. This isn't the first time it's been a problem. I'm sorry for pointing out the music at the beginning of GCN's Dubai rider interview video is Indian, not Middle Eastern. I'm sorry, it is. Shazam doesn't lie. I'm sorry Trek's Bob Jungels and Southeast's Manuel Belletti will start their seasons with wins no one will notice on roads that are far more indicative of regular season performance because they took them somewhere without any oil money. I'm sorry for not being impressed with Katusha's Alexander Kristoff's 3 wins at Qatar, even though I do expect him to have an incredible season. I'm sorry you had to read Giant Alpecin director Mark Reef say something as silly as the season starts at Tirreno when everyone knows it starts at Het Nieuwsblad. I'm sorry for doing this show on a Friday, which means I can't include the latest race results, nor make fun of them until next week. I'm sorry I have a Tumblr tag called Things NBCSN Broadcasts That Are Not Sports, when in fact I should be sucking up to them with the intent of taking the regime down from the inside. I'm sorry I gave the impression that cyclocross season ended at Worlds when in fact the Bpost and Super Prestige series were still going. I'm sorry I didn't talk more about Ellen Van Looy of Telnet Fidea, who took the women's Bpost Bank series overall by placing steadily throughout the season, even while she had a day job. I'm sorry that I'm not psyched about BKCP Power Plus's Mathieu van der Poel having another ride-away win at Lille, and that he'll probably take the Super Prestige overall easily next weekend. I'm sorry on behalf of everyone even remotely involved with cycling that the Super Prestige series, despite the fact that it's 2015, still doesn't have a women's overall title. I'm sorry that Ellen Van Dijk, Lizzie Armitstead, and Evelyn Stevens are all going to be on the same team this classic season. I'm also sorry I don't think Rabo Liv's Vos and Ferrand Prévot will prove an effective counter. I'm sorry I don't feature Sabrina on the show more often. She's so cute. I'm sorry I don't have the resources to take rights holder organizations to trial over YouTube takedown requests. I'm sorry the video player I currently use for this show doesn't work as reliably as it could. And I'm sorry I keep refusing to distill the videos down to formats that would solve both these problems, including but not limited to pro tips, listicles, celebrity tie-ins, native content advertorials, and of course anything with the word Lance in the title. I'm especially sorry that the previous restrictions prevent me from fully unloading on a drunk driving girlfriend-blaming douchebag who uses his acquaintances' deaths as public spin control. I'm sorry for not making more frequent efforts to tell Chris Horner to retire from professional cycling and pitch sponsors instead on a worldwide campaign of Strava KOM poaching. Or cyclocross videos.
Chris Horner's Cyclocross Essentials.
I'm sorry Horner doesn't realize that nowadays age and biopassport are far more important than wins and watts per unit mass at threshold. And I'm also sorry he doesn't see that as a good thing for the sport as a whole. I'm sorry that Horner's old team, Lampre Merida, seems to have hired former UCI president Pat McQuaid as their communications director. I'm sorry that for the first time in weekend bike history, I'm wearing a t-shirt that I've already featured. I'm sorry too that it took 4 years for whatever rights management goobers the UCI hired to find the bumper sticker based on this design. I'd much rather be mad at McQuaid than his successor. And finally, I'm sorry that the Cirque doping report still hasn't come out yet, because I'd really like to find out what that successor, Brian Cookson, is made of. I'm Cosmo Catalano, and I'm sorry to say that that was the Week in Bike.
Unlike other outlets, when I screw it up, I know it's the Cyclocosm Apology Show.